All right, so good afternoon, everybody. Phil Resch here. And, for those who don't know me, Valor Financial Specialist, been in the industry for 18 plus years. Worked for two Fortune 100 carriers, AIG and MetLife. And, went independent about 3 years ago because my big thing is I don't want to be bound by one carrier, by one set of rules. There are opportunity out there for different value propositions what some people in this industry, like as you see, and when you talk about Mike here, I'm gonna gush on him for a bit. Mike is a skinny mini. I am not. So the carriers that Mike has available at his fingertips might not be the same ones that are available for me. So when you look at the idea of being an independent, having options and opportunity is important. Now, underwriting is a whole different animal that we'll tackle at a separate time. But the other, when you talk about true underwriting, it's weight, height, all that stuff. But then the other side is pricing. And pricing is so important. When you think about it, a lot of people put the blinders on because they favor one or two carriers. And if that carrier doesn't give them the offer they want, they start to complain and they're like, I need a better offer. I'm going to lose this client. It's like, well, why don't you look? There's 30 other, artists in the industry ready to paint a different self-portrait for your client. Why not figure out which one works best from a pricing and an underwriting standpoint? So, um, we had Mike McLaughlin at our great collaboration event, which was 2 weeks ago. And the goal is to help everyone accelerate their game, become that top broker, and provide a value proposition that you can see different pricing and product, which can enhance your go-to carrier, or you might see that they're kind of like a dog with fleas. So the idea here is that we want to show you a different way to run quotes, run illustrations, and Mike, I can't thank you enough for the partnership. I'll let you take over from here and show us what great stuff you guys have going with ensight.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. That was a nice introduction. Just to reiterate again, my name is Mike McLaughlin. I am with ensight. We refer to ourselves as a sales acceleration platform. So effectively, we want to take the tedious and monotonous aspects of the pre-sale side of things, running the illustrations, putting together presentations, and understanding how the case design is going to work before you sit down with your client. We want to take that aspect of what you guys have to do every day and make it a simple, efficient, and easy process. Um, Before I dive into this, just a little bit about myself. I actually came from distribution myself as well. So I spent about a decade managing a very large case design team for a very large BGA. And that means that I know exactly what you guys go through every single day. I spent a decade of my life helping producers like yourselves understand the various products that are in the market and understand how they work and how to position them for each type of various sales that you may be coming across. The really cool thing about ensight is that even though we are a software company, pretty much everybody at our company has a similar background, either working for, like myself, a BGA or IMO, working for carriers directly, or like you guys working as independent producers themselves. So we like to think of ourselves as insurance folks that just happen to be working in software and not the other way around. So we come to it with your guys' perspective in mind, understanding what your guys' needs are and hoping that we can address those needs. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. So when you start a sale or when you start a conversation with each of your clients, can you guys, there you go. Ideally, you don't want to have to sell off of the illustration. I would assume that most of you guys have done that at least once or twice, and you understand that that's not exactly a simple process. There's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of language, and there's a lot of potentially intimidating material in that a person that's not familiar with these products and not familiar with this industry could find a little off-putting, and it makes the sale a little more difficult when you're really just trying to focus in on a few certain data points. So ultimately, this is what you're looking at here is our presentation output, and ultimately what we would like to do is get you guys to this point so that when you sit down with your clients and you're having these conversations, you can talk about these carriers and products. So in this case, I've pre-prepared, we're running a Jane Smith, and I can go through and show the comparison of these four products or whatever products that I choose. This is just a random example using these four products, but I can talk about them intelligently. I can compare them side by side effectively, and I don't get lost in all of the weeds. I don't get lost in all that extra stuff that may not necessarily be relevant to the client or to the case design. It needs to exist for compliance purposes in the illustration, but it's not necessarily something that you need to talk about in your presentations with your clients. So this helps kind of cut all of that stuff out. You can build these to focus in on the data points that you feel are relevant and have a much more streamlined and efficient conversation with your clients. Now, to get to this point, you got to start obviously with the illustrations themselves. So, how do you build the illustrations? So, when you first log into the ensight platform and you're building an illustration, you're going to start here with your client info. So you enter your client information, enter your producer information. You'll notice that we also keep things housed in these case files. So any designs that you run for your clients, you'll see historically all the old cases that you've ever worked on you can access. So you don't necessarily need to save everything to your desktop anymore. It's very clean and organized, almost like a little case CRM within the platform. So we keep everything for you so that you don't have to worry about it. Now, when you start your design process, you'll notice that we are a little different from most platforms. So if you've ever run illustrations in, say, carrier software or other multi-carrier platforms, typically they will always have you start with picking the product. So you go in, you pick your product, you build the design, and then you run the numbers. We have it the other way around, and we do that intentionally because we don't want your designs to be product focused. We want it to be client focused. Your client is the most important thing, not the product. So when your client has specific needs, we want to make sure that we're facilitating and providing you with the products, providing you with the products that facilitate that specific need. So we have you pick the products at the very end, and as you go through and pick and build your design, what the platform is going to do is it's going to intuitively kind of understand based off of the inputs that you selected, we're going to get rid of all the products that don't fit the need that you're building, and we're only going to leave you with the products that do. So rather than having to scroll through, the 500 products that we have on the platform, you'll get a truncated, hey, here's 30 products that fit the specific design that you just built. So it makes it a condensed, easy way to scroll through what is typically an overwhelming amount of life products. And you can kind of focus in on the ones that really mean the most to you. So start here by entering your client information. Now you'll also notice that we have a lot of different product types within the platform. So in this case, I've already pre-run this one just to have ready for this example here, but you'll notice that you can run multiple product options and you can run them simultaneously. So in this case, I'm running a term and perm combo. I've got an IUL that I've already pre-built an income scenario, so I'm max funding, pulling income out from retirement age 65 to 90. But I also want to look at some term alternatives or some term to supplement those first 20 years as well. As you go through, you'll notice that you're building this illustration pretty similarly to what you would expect from maybe carrier software or other illustration platforms. If you've done illustration work before, it's pretty intuitive and you'll be able to kind of adapt to this pretty quickly. What's really nice though is that, rather than having to enter all of these inputs for every single product, you enter them for the case design and we will automatically apply all of these inputs to however many products you select. So rather than if you select 10 products, you don't have to enter this information 10 times. You enter it once and we just add it to all of those 10 products or 20 or however many you select. You'll notice that you can still do all the same various options that you would expect in any other software. So I can still build protection-focused designs for legacy protection, no lapse guarantees. I can build accumulation designs, or in this case, I can do an income scenario where I'm pulling distributions from the policy. So flexibility is completely completely open here. You can design and run whatever your client needs. Now I've got my term stuff here. So as I've started my ULs here, and I can now adjust my term. What's really nice, again, as I mentioned, the platform will filter certain products out. So if I select any of these writers, the platform is going to know, hey, these are the products that have this writer, these are the products that don't. So we're going to get rid of them so that when you get down to this product selection page down here, all of those products have been removed and you don't have to scroll through a mountain of products. Now the platform is going to default to run all of the UL-based products through the S&P 500 annual point to point. And we do that intentionally. What I personally love about the platform is we're not trying to give any carrier an unfair advantage or disadvantage over anybody else. So as much as we possibly can, we default to a level playing field. So that way, if you want to use the various allocations that maybe have bonuses and multipliers and high capped accounts and things like that, you have the ability to adjust that here on the product selection page, or you can even change it to a carrier default. But by the platform default, we're going to start always on a level playing field so that way nobody gets an unfair advantage. You can adjust all of the same normal case design inputs that you would expect to see. So in this case, I have this one running in an increasing death benefit for the first 20 years while I'm paying those premiums, and then levelizing. You got your premium modes, your GPTC that, lump sums, and 1035s. Again, all of the stuff that you would expect to see, you can run here. You can even mark them revised. So if you've got a case you've submitted to the carrier and they just need a quick revision, and they need it to be marked revised, you can even come to the saved case that you already have, click the yes button, move to summary and let it recalculate, and you're already good to go. You've got your revised illustration in a matter of seconds. Now I move over to my disbursements page. Now in this case, I've got my disbursements already turned on because I'm pulling income. So I'm running, no income from year 1 to age 64, then from 65 to 90, solving for max income. So lots of, basically what it's going to do here is it's going to filter out any of the products that are not capable of running a design like this. Then I move over to my reports and riders. Now, in terms of saving myself time, again, just like with the term products, same thing with the universal life products or the whole life or any of the permanent products. This is going to be a huge, huge, huge time saver. Like I said, I came from distribution. I know how time consuming it is when a client reaches out and says, hey, I need to have a child rider on here. Previously, I knew that meant I was going to spend at least an additional 45 minutes just looking for the carriers that have that rider because nobody memorized. I mean, I was a case designer for 10 years and I don't have any of that memorized. And their products are constantly changing. New products are being released. Old products are getting sunset. So this is a constantly changing landscape of options, which means that if you're trying to memorize this stuff, it's a effort in futility. It just won't happen. So having to go through and find all of those products that have the riders and features that you need can be a very time-consuming process. Whereas here, you just select the rider and you're good to go. If the product has the rider, it will be included. If the product does not have the rider, it's going to be filtered out. And in this case, because I ran an income scenario, I already have that overloan protection rider selected so I could show you guys a little bit more about how that filtering works. So then you move on to your agent details. This is really nice because you can just have your information ready to go so you don't have to type it in every time. Just save yourself or save your name in there, type in a search real quick, and it'll pull up all of your info. So it's very fast, very efficient. Now I'm ready to move on and I've got my product selection. Now in this case, I'm looking at term and IUL. So because I'm not looking at whole life, because I'm not looking at variable GULs or any of the other options, those are not going to be factored in here at all. They've already been filtered out way back here at the product type. So what I'm seeing here, these filtered 92 products, these are being filtered specifically term and IUL because those are the products that I selected. So there are 80 products that are capable of running the design that I built, 92 that have been filtered out. Now it's a pretty large number, largely because I'm also looking at term here. There's obviously a ton of term products. Um, but if I scroll through, I have a ton of options that I can choose from. I've already got a bunch pre-selected here for this example. So I've got a good mix of universal life, index universal life stuff, and then some term stuff. Now, if I'm scrolling through and for some reason I feel like I'm not seeing a certain product, hey, why am I not seeing carrier ABC? I feel like I should be seeing them. We give you the option to click on those filtered products and you can actually see what products were removed and you can see why they were removed here. So because I included that overloan protection rider where I'm doing income and I want to make sure I have that overloan rider on there for security, well, any product that doesn't have that overloan is going to get removed. So you'll see right here, obviously these are protection focused products, but again, they were removed because they don't offer that rider. Similarly, there's some products that are not available for the state of sale, not available because they're second to die products. So any product that has been removed, you will be able to see exactly why. So if it is a product that you really want to include and maybe that rider or whatever it was that kicked it out isn't a huge part of that sale process, it gives you the flexibility of knowing, okay, if I really want to include this carrier, I do have to go back and turn that overloan rider off, and I can explain that to my client. Now, at this point, everybody's built the same way, they're all running the same way. But what if I want to do what if I want to add some individuality? So maybe using John Hancock here as an example, maybe I've had a call with Hancock, I've talked to their underwriter, and while I know most carriers are going to offer this client standard, maybe John Hancock is willing to offer preferred. What's really nice is you have the ability to do custom adjustments on a product by product basis. So even though we're applying the same inputs to all of these products to save you time, you can still customize as needed. So if you open the configure menus, you notice there's a configure menu next to each of the products here. Here's where I can come in and I can adjust things like the underwriting class. So while all the other products are going to be running standard, I've adjusted this John Hancock product to run preferred. Additionally, you notice that on that writers page over here, that's the most common types of writers, but that's certainly not all of the writers that are available. We do still have access to all of those writers. We include those other writers here in the configure menu. So the reason for that being either A, the writers like this one here, where it's specific to a single carrier. The Vitality rider is a John Hancock exclusive rider that nobody else has access to run except for John Hancock. So this is one of those riders where we were going to include this. You still have the ability to adjust it. You still have the ability to include it or exclude it or whatever you choose. We just have to have that in the configure menu. Similar riders like term riders. A lot of these riders are riders that a lot of carriers offer, but maybe they're built a little differently. Some want to see a dollar amount, some want to see a percentage of the death benefit, so on and so forth. So because some of those riders have a very individual sort of aspects to how they work, that's the other reason why we keep some of those here in the configure menus rather than that main page where you'll notice that most of those riders are just a simple yes, I want it or no, I don't. Um, at this point, once you've selected the products that you want to run, you hit your save products and run illustrations. Now, this is where it's going to automatically start to calculate those numbers. So this is feeding into carrier software directly, and it's actually pulling compliant illustrations, the exact same illustrations that you would get from the carriers directly. It will calculate all of those and it'll create PDFs. So right here, you'll notice like if I really wanted to, I could open that Securian illustration. I have full access to that same carrier compliant illustration that I would get if I called the carrier or ran it through their software. But you'll notice that I have all of them rather than just one carrier at a time. So from an efficiency standpoint, this is miles ahead of what a lot of what I was used to when I was running these one carrier at a time. The other really nice aspect of this is I have the ability to compare all sorts of different data fields. So in this case, I'm looking at an accumulation scenario where I'm trying to build cash and pull income from that policy. So rather than focusing on the death benefit or focusing on the premium, the premium is the same for all of these. And the death benefit's really not the relevant issue here. I'm looking at this distribution. This is what the goal is for this design. I want to get the most income. So what's nice is I can sort by any of these columns. In this case, I can sort my highest income to lowest income. So I can scroll through and say, hey, there's a lot of great carriers in here, but this one's offering $10,000 in income more than this one. So I can just kind of cut to the chase and see who my top options are and focus in on who the best carriers are going to be for this particular scenario in a much quicker and much more efficient time manner than I would have been able to do previously. I can also adjust what columns are being displayed here. So if I go to my display configuration, you'll notice that I have the ability to add all sorts of different data fields. So, and if there's a data field that or if there's a certain age or year that is not being displayed that I want to have displayed, let's say maybe I want to see income at age 70. I can add it there as well. So I don't have to be limited to just what's there. I can add other ages or years as well. Now at this point, I've got my permanent products up here. I've got my term products down here. I can look at all the multiple term durations or premium modes here. So if I'm looking at the difference between maybe an annual premium versus a monthly premium, I can see all of that. Now I've got my illustrations and I'm ready to present. Now there's a few different presentation options. Now I know I started showing you guys this one, but there are other options as well. This is a really thorough, very nice presentation, but a lot of times it's a smaller case maybe, or I'm in a hurry, or the client, this may be a little overwhelming for a client. So we have a couple other options as well, and that is what we refer to as the summary PDF. So if I click on the summary PDF option here, what it's going to do is it's going to take the products that I have selected here, and it's going to automatically take the client information, case design information, any of the data fields that I've turned on, and it's going to create a nice presentation like this. So it'll either look like this, where I'm looking at multiple products all at the same time, comparing the various data fields. I can get my term and my perm all in the same PDF, and I can send this off to the client, or I can use this when I'm sitting down with the client and I can compare the different product options. And what's really nice is once they've made a decision or once they've kind of honed in on a specific product that they feel makes the most sense for them, there are links to the full illustrations to every one of those products right here. So if they sit down and say, hey, I really like this Allianz. I know Securion's showing a little bit more, but I really like this Allianz product. I can click on that PDF right there and it will take me to the actual carrier illustration. I can go through the numbers, I can go through the specifics, and then if there's something that they want to know more about, I can simply click the back button and I can go to the next whatever other product they may want to look at. Now this format I really love for lots of products. If I'm looking at, 7 plus 8, if I'm looking at a lot of different options here, this is definitely going to be the way that I would want to do it because I can fit a lot of products in just a couple of pages. However, if I've limited it to, let's say I already have it narrowed down to like a top 4 option, this is another version that you can show that I really love because this version includes room to include the carrier logo, which clients just love a carrier logo. There's a familiarity, there's a comfort there. I don't know what it is, but just being able to show the carrier logo, it's just more polished, and clients typically just feel more comfortable. As a client, I may not be overly familiar with any of them by name, but I know I've seen these logos when I watch hockey games across the boards, or when I'm watching a baseball game and I see it on the outfield wall or wherever. There's familiarity there. So I'm a big fan of sending it out in this format. And then lastly, like I said, there is the full presentation. And this is my absolute favorite way to send things out. I have the ability to adjust all of these various data fields. And what's really nice is this is a completely interactive presentation. So when I sit down with a client and I go through this and I'm talking about these charts and I'm looking at things like the income here, I can talk about premium and I can say your initial premium is $10,000 with each of these products. Cumulatively, by the time you're done, you will have paid a total of $200,000. Here's what your guaranteed death benefit's going to look like when you start out. Guaranteed death benefit's going to be right around 200-ish with every product. As you start to build that product in and you pay those premiums, because we're running that increasing death benefit option for those first 20 years, you'll get to a little over 300,000 with everybody. And then as we start to pull income out, that death benefit is going to drop. Now keep in mind, this is just on the guaranteed side. On the non-guaranteed side, It does continue to drop, but it does drop, but not nearly at that same pace. So understand that, with the way IULs work, as long as it's getting a relatively decent rate of return consistently, you're still going to be fine on that non-guaranteed side. In this case, when I stop pulling income at age 90, depending on the carrier that I go with, I should have roughly 1 to 1.5, left in cash or left in a death benefit. Surrender values. I can talk about that surrender values. I can see how that surrender value is growing while I'm putting money into the policy. Uh, Guaranteed side, obviously, no one's really focused too much on guaranteed surrender values, so let's compare those to the non-guaranteed. Non-guaranteed obviously is going to grow considerably better. By the time I'm ready to pull income, I'm 64. I have a pool of about 4.5. Once I start to pull income, I can see that that surrender value is obviously going to drop. So I can see things like in this case, Securian is obviously showing the highest annual income. However, I can also see that by the time I'm done pulling income, they're leaving me with the smallest amount of total income or of total cash value left. So while yes, it is illustrating better here, it's also a little bit more risky on the death benefit and the cash value side. It's getting much closer to that cannibalization point where the policy could fall apart. So, it's an easy way to make that side by side comparison and show that risk of yes, it is better, but just understand the potential risks involved. Now I can also see how that grows. I can see all sorts of this stuff. And what's really nice is it allows you to pivot. If a client asks something like, hey, these numbers look great, but what happens if I die too early? This is showing income till age 90, but what happens if I die at 85? Well, at 85, obviously, you will still have pulled a good chunk of income. You would obviously miss out on this income here. However, keep in mind that you still have that non-guaranteed net death benefit. So at 85, even though you're going to miss out on this income, your family is still going to have about 200 to $250,000 of death benefit available. So you're not leaving people shorthanded here. So again, it's conversations that I'm sure you've all had plenty of times. This just makes the entire process more fluid, more comfortable, more easy, and far more approachable for a client so that they don't get intimidated. And as you go through here, what's really nice is we never leave you too far from the full illustration. So at any point in time, if the client wants to really dive into the weeds and get very specific, you have illustration links here. And you have illustration links down here at the bottom of the spreadsheet. And again, we even include links at the bottom of the charts page here. So you're never far. And we also include all sorts of fun little options here. In this case, I've added these silly notes. These notes are accurate, but this is just random examples of some of the things that you can do when you're building this is what it looks like when you're actually showing it to the clients. But when you're building it, I'll show you here really quick some of the ways that you can adjust these. So when you're building these presentations, this is what it'll look like on your end. So you'll be able to see that you can add or remove any of these different pages here. If I go to my charts page here, I can add more of these pages or I can take them off. Maybe I want to talk IRR. So let's talk IRR. And I can add those to the presentation as well. If I go to my product table here, those notes that I left include, this product includes a chronic illness rider. This one has a unique rate lock feature. These are all notes that I manually entered. So this is really helpful for any kind of conversational piece that you feel is relevant, the stuff that you know about these products or these carriers that you're maybe not going to find listed anywhere in the illustration. We've all done business with a lot of these carriers before. We know who's great with underwriting. We know who's great with smokers and who's not great with smokers. Maybe you've got one of those casual, I smoke cigars a couple times a year. Well, for some carriers, that's going to still be smoker rates. Other carriers, maybe it's not. Maybe it's once a month. Maybe it's once every 6 months. These are all things that the more you work in this industry, you just intuitively start to know these things. And what's really nice is even though that's not listed anywhere in the illustration itself, this gives you the ability to add a note to be able to talk to that point. So I can come in here and I can add whatever specific note I feel like. When I was in distribution, I worked in advanced sales and I did a lot of things for For national clients that would do a lot of concepts like key man policies, premium financing, buy sell, stuff like that. And being able to address certain points and certain features of these products with this note feature was really, really, really helpful. And if I'm sending this out to my client, I can even go the extra mile. I don't have to sit down with my client if I maybe it's not the easiest thing to schedule time with them. Maybe they have a really busy schedule. I have the ability actually to send this presentation to them. So I can come here and click this copy table button, and then right in my email, I can paste that in there. That will include all the products, the notes that I've included, a quick breakdown of whatever data fields I feel are relevant, links to the full illustrations, and if I really wanted to, I can actually send them the link to the presentation. So this presentation here, if I can't sit down or I can't schedule a Zoom call or anything like that with them for a while, but I still want them to have the ability to kind of scroll through, I can paste that in there as well. It automatically knows the client's name. It'll paste in there with, Insight presentation for that client. You don't have to leave the word Insight. You can delete that word and it'll still be fine. But this way, if they click on that link, it will take them here and they can kind of browse through this stuff. And what's really nice is here, they can't break anything. I like to joke that this is like bowling with the bumpers up. They can play around and they can move this around, but they're not going to be able to break any illustrations. They're not going to recalculate any numbers. It's still going to get them where they need to go. They can just kind of ping around between those bumpers. If they need numbers recalculated, if they need to readjust anything, it forces them to keep you involved in the conversation because you're the only one that's going to have the ability to do that for them. So like I said, once you've got that set, you just add whatever notes or anything else you feel is relevant to that email, type in their email address, hit send, and you're on their way. And you notice that I have 0 attachments here. There's not a single attachment in this email, but if I hit send and send this to the client, they still have everything that they need to make a fully educated decision, well informed, and I don't have to worry about all that extra file space with PDFs and saving a bunch of stuff to my desktop. It's all right here. Simple, clean, easy. Now, I know I went through that all very quickly. I did that intentionally because I wanted to give you guys time. I feel like you guys are probably going to have a lot of questions for me. So please feel free. I'm going to open it. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to open the floor now to any questions that you guys might have for me. So feel free to unmute yourself. I know Phil said to mute yourself. I appreciate that, Phil, but now's the time where you can unmute yourself and fire away any questions you have.
I have questions if people don't, but I want to see who has them first.
Sure.
Everyone is awestruck,
I
right?
guess so, yeah. All right, Phil, what questions did you have, Phil?
Well, Danny went off mute, so I'll let him
Okay.
go first.
Yeah, I when you are doing like multiple carriers, I noticed on some of those, and I think you may have showed me a way around that, but it looks like when you're doing the presentations that you're limited to maybe only 3 or 4 carriers at a max on that when you're doing that presentation. But if you go into that summary, it looks like that opens that up. So I think that might answer the question that I've got.
Yes. And that's a really good question slash point to make there. Yes. So you are correct with the full presentation. So with this presentation here, we do limit it to 4. So you can do 1, 2, 3, or 4 different products in here. We do that specifically because we want to make sure that it's not overly condensed information. If you add more than 4 carriers, we found that the data fields just get so squished and so condensed that it's really difficult to read and it just isn't very attractive to sit down with a client and go over that sort of stuff. So this presentation, you are definitely going to want to limit to 4 or less products. But to your point, yes, if you wanted to show like a top 10, if you're trying to prove that you've done your due diligence and you've looked at a wide variety of options, then yes, you are going to probably want to go with something like this that shows you, hey, we're going to talk about Securian today, but I wanted to make sure you understood that I looked at a lot of different options across the board. Here's some term options in here as well. So yes, that's a great question.
So the quick question I had, kind of going back to that illustration where you copy the tables and everything,
Yeah.
are you able to do that both with IUL or permanent and term as well? Or is it just specifically for the permanent products?
So you can do permanent and term. If you're going to do, and this is all stuff that I can teach you, just so keep that in mind also if you decide to subscribe to the platform, Phil can give you those details. But I would also be available as a support contact. So anytime you have questions, how do I do this? How do I do that? You can reach out to me and I can walk you through that. But yes, you can throw your term products in there. You can throw your permanent products in there. You can throw term and perm into the same presentation in that simple copy paste right into the body of your email. I will point out though, variable is different. Due to FINRA compliance, we cannot show variable and non-variable products in the same full presentation. So that is an exception where you would have to create a separate presentation just for the variable stuff. Unfortunately, there's not much we could do about that. That is a compliance regulation that we have to abide by.
I got another one now. When you're doing, which I have been using it quite a bit, but when you're doing different face amounts,
Hmm.
when we're doing the client in there, like if I was looking for a client looking at a $50,000 whole life and then possibly a $25,000, or let's just say 50,000 face, 25,000 face.
Hmm.
I did it separately, going back, back and forth and back and forth. But is there a way to do it on the front end where it'll do both 50 and 25 at the same time?
So we can do that with term. So yes, if you're trying to do multiple face amounts or premiums, you can definitely do that with the term products. Not yet with the permanent. The reason for that is the way the platform works is typically most people are running multiple carriers and multiple products. And from a workload standpoint, a lot of carrier servers, the actual calculation engines on the carrier end, they struggle if they're trying to do too much at one time. So if you're doing multiple face amounts and multiple premiums or rate classes or something like that, some carriers will actually struggle so much that their calculation engines will just time out and you won't get any results at all. Um, so we're working with carriers to help kind of improve their connections and their calculation engines so that we can develop them to a point where it will allow for something like that. So right now, you can only do that with term, but I do want to show you a very quick sort of way to maybe take what you're doing where you're running multiple face amounts or multiple rate classes and very quickly adjust so that you have a bunch of different options without really having to start from scratch every single time. So using this pre-built case that I have here, in this case, I have a $10,000 annual premium here. So let's say I've already got my $10,000 annual premium. Let's say I also want to do a second premium. Sorry, my screen froze for a second. Zoom seems to be having some issues with my screen. So there we go. Sorry, my Zoom decided to freak out on me for a moment there. I apologize. So now let's say I wanted to do a second face amount. So instead of, or excuse me, a second premium amount. So instead of $10,000 annual premium, maybe I want to see 10,000 versus 12,000. Here's, you said client says max that they're willing to contribute is 12, but they feel more comfortable with 10. Well, let's just see what the difference would be between 10 and 12. So because I have the ability to quickly just go back to the various inputs, I can just simply change 10 to 12, and I don't need to rebuild anything else. All of those inputs are already there, so I can just skip straight to the summary page, and it'll start to recalculate, knowing all of that other stuff is all the same, and it'll provide me with those updated numbers. Now, in this case, obviously, it is going to take a minute to calculate because I do have to wait for those carriers to do those recalculations. But what's really nice is, for the sake of time, I'll just pick a few carriers here, but we'll say Securian, Pru, and Symetra. So these are the carriers that I want to go with. Now, I already have illustrations on file in the full presentation right here. But if I wanted to, I could add more to them. So I can say, hey, I've already got these four in there. So I want to add four more. So I'm going to hit create presentation. And now what I can do is instead of creating a new presentation, the platform will allow me to update an existing presentation. So I can say, this is the one that I want to update. It's this Jane Smith max income. And it's going to tell me, hey, these are the four products that I already have in there. Here's the four that you're adding. If I need to remove any of them, I can. If I want to add any specific notes, I can do that as well, which I used to do this a lot for stress testing. So when I was in distribution, I would actually do a lot of designs where I would show carriers at their maximum AG49 rate, which at that time was really high. It was irresponsibly high. But that's the way carriers wanted to see it shown. And I would say, okay, great, I'll show you that number, but I'm also going to show you that at maybe 5% or a 6% return so you can see a more realistic outcome and you can see them side by side. So you could see maybe compare volatility between products or different pricing, different rate classes, whatever it may be, you can do that. Then add them to that existing presentation. And then what's really nice is now to your point before, actually, I can only show four products at the same time, but I can add more on these charts page. So if I open up this presentation, so now those products are added to this presentation. Now it's still only going to show those four in the cover sheet. Only those initial four are selected here, but you'll notice that it did add those other four here. So I've got 10,000 and 12,000 in the same presentation. And in the charts page here, if I scroll down, I can actually say, well, let's look at my top two 10,000 and let's look at my top two 12,000. So I'm going to come here and turn these off and turn these on. And if I scroll up now, you'll see here's my 10,000 and here's my 12,000 side by side. So I still have a lot of flexibility to show multiple premiums, multiple rate classes. Now, even though I'm only displaying four at a time, I can add more than four. So yes,
Thank you so much.
absolutely. Does
And
anybody else have any questions for me?
well, real quick, I did put the email that was sent out to everyone who came to TGC in the link. So or in the link in the chat. So for those who, for example's sake, didn't see it, and what Mike alluded to was, I have a master account with ensight. So instead of you paying full price for it, you can pay a discounted price through the Valor Corporation opportunity, and you can get everything that he's showing here to allow you to do the same thing. Now,
That Bill, yeah, I love that you touched on that. I didn't want to talk price because I do know that anybody that has a question, I wanted to make sure you go through Phil because it is a
yeah,
really nice discount. I can tell you for sure. It's actually more than 50% off what you would get if you purchased it outside of the Valor relationship. So
yeah. And I would say the one thing, if no one else has any questions, because there are some people who like you and I, kindred spirits, love the S&P. The whole conversation we had last night for our back to basics conversation was around the S&P and its importance and why a lot of these people, their VCIs, are really kind of butchering the product unto itself. So showing something like the S&P only is great, but we had a little back and forth because, for example's sake, Corebridge is at like 7.02, but Columbus is at like 6.21, I think.
something like that.
So, yeah. So if we dropped them all to 6%, even playing field, I wanted you to kind of show. I got it. I
Yeah,
figured it out. But yeah, if you don't mind showing,
yeah,
because
absolutely.
that will also move people around.
Exactly. So what Phil's talking about when you're in the design, the illustrated rate that I talked about here, or the rate of return that I talked about here, actually not rate of return, interest rate, sorry. When I mentioned that we always default to the S&P 500 point to point, again, this is definitely to help level that playing field. However, it is also it is going to default to run those max AG49 rates. And to Phil's point, max AG49 rates are different from carrier to carrier and product to product. So you're going to have some carriers that are maybe in the low sevens, others that are in the mid sixes, and some that are even as, like high fives. So if I'm trying to level that playing field, what I can do is even more so level it anyway. I can go to assumed, type in, let's say I want to see everybody at 6.5. What's really nice is we also don't want to eliminate carriers entirely for something like this. So if you put in a rate that's too high, so let's say 6.5 is a good example where some carriers can run 6.5, other carriers may not be able to get that high. What we'll do is we'll run every carrier that can get 6.5, we will run at 6.5, and everybody else will get as close to it as their max AG49 rates will allow. So if their max is 6.01, we'll run them at 6.01. So that way we're not completely eliminating them. We do want to make sure that we don't over filter your options just on something as simple as that. But a more realistic number, let's say 6%, this is going to be a really easy way to just get a nice level playing field for every product and really see that simple side by side. So now when I calculate those numbers, everybody's going to be showing me 6% or lower if that's their max AG49, if they have like a 5.8 or something like that, but helps level that playing field that much more. And again, you can see just how fast and easy it is to make those adjustments to a design. I don't have to go through all the various inputs for every single product. I can just come back to the design, click it once, skip right back to the summary page and let it recalculate. And you can see everybody here is running that 6% now. So
You're correct, Vincent. This doesn't have application for annuities. Cheap shameless plug, we will have Annuity Genius on tomorrow. So when we talk about a foundation package for growth and opportunity, when you look at, I would say, an advancement for your business, this is I know with ensight, we were able to place a very large case just because of the presentation, the design, and the structure. So it kind of makes up for the cost, per month from that standpoint. Same thing, what we talk about with AG tomorrow. It's an enhancement in when you talk about the investment in your practice, much like as you make more money, you hire a CPA. The CPA, you pay money and they're designed to help you save money. This is to help you attract more money and more opportunity on the life side. Excuse me, the life side. So,
Good. No, I mean, I liked it, and I thoroughly enjoy AG as well. Just
yeah,
curious, just looking.
yeah.
I was on what was it? Oh, I did a asset map webinar, I think last week.
oh, nice.
Just looking around, seeing what else is out there, you know?
Yep. Yep. Well, I was going to say the partnership that we have with these guys has been very thorough, very opportune. And for those who remember me from my prior life as an RVP for Corebridge, we are still in the process of trying to get the QOL on ensight as well. For those who like to have that living benefit conversation, as of right now, the only thing on there is the stock Corebridge product, but it's funny because, and Mike, you'd appreciate this. Like, I recall seeing a note from Corebridge from my old buddies there, and they said, "Yeah, Q1, we should have it." And in my head, I'm like, "All right, that's Q4." So,
Yep, you're
and
still working at the pace of the carriers, which
tried and
everybody
true.
knows. Nothing's slower than a carrier. So
Yep, yep. So, so yeah, that's the main thing is the idea is what's the worth to your business? What's the worth to you as growing in this? And what we can also talk about is if you have a team and you're looking to try and grow that from a team perspective, we're trying to boost the opportunity up. If we can get to a specified number, then we can make some great adjustments. So more on that later. But I think from the standpoint of this, it's truly helped me in regards to like I can do the runs through WinFlex with the carriers and change the here and there. But it's the same reason why people like Mark Cuban, will still go to valet and pay valet. Time is money. So if he were to go park his car, it'd be free, yeah, but he's wasting time trying to find a parking spot. So he gets to his appointment, gets out. Same thing here. This is the objective of how do you get stuff done quicker, more efficiently? If you have a team and they're asking for quotes and you need to get a lot of stuff done, this helps you get a lot of stuff done. So that's why I truly appreciate the partnership and what Insight brings to the table. And like I said, they're constantly looking for feedback, constantly looking for ways to improve the process. And to me, that just talks about partnership, true partnership right there. So this is on recording, Mike. And I'll just say I appreciate
I
you guys.
appreciate that, Phil. I'm gonna go to my
Yeah,
bosses with that and just let
yeah.
them know
Mike deserves a
how great I
raise.
am. So
Yeah,
no, but
exactly. So,
I do want to kind of just leave one last comment before we go. I know we're wrapping up here, but I know I hit on it already, but I think it's important to understand that, like I said, I came from distribution. I helped producers like yourselves for over a decade, running illustrations, building presentations, and understanding how these products work and doing whatever possible to help you guys facilitate the sale. And that's still very much my mindset. Even though I'm not in distribution anymore, I'm on the vendor side of things. That's still very much where I'm coming from. So any of the subscribers to the platform, Phil will be able to give you my contact info. And if you guys ever have questions, if you ever have concerns, if you ever have feedback, anything like that, you're always welcome to call me or email me, and I am happy to hop in. Anything that you save on your end, I have the ability to see on my end. So if you're just saying something as simple as, Mike, is there a better way for me to do this design? I can hop in and I can give you my 2 cents, my feedback just from my decade of case design experience, and we can work collaboratively if you really want to, yes. So
awesome. Well, I'll wrap it up. So again, this will be on the YouTube channel. So at Valor Financial, we'll have this recording up there for those who want to see it again or see it for the first time. So want to say truly thank you guys, and we will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. We're going to have Annuity Genius in here to talk about the annuity side of something very similar that has also exponentially grown the annuity business from Valor this year. As well as we have our Back to Basics every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. It's free for anybody to join. You don't have to be part of Valor, but why not, right? Wink. But anyway, you guys have a great rest of your day. Great weekend. Mike, thank you again. And
thank
we'll
you.
talk soon. See you
Have a
guys.
great one, guys. Bye bye.